Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back to Crown's Crypto Cave. As always, want to be wishing you a healthy and happy Tuesday morning over here from a nice and bright, actually sunny Helsinki, Finland. One of the first days in literally 2 months, but you know what? It's a sign, baby. It is a sign that it is time to do some good old cryptocurrency, some very serious magic internet money analysis. So as always, wishing you well, wishing you the happiest of the happiest, the best of the best, as we say over here on Crown's Crypto Cave. And let's get in a live scene as Bitcoin. Actually doing basically what we talked about last night. Again, coming back down to that 35.50-ish range, giving a little tappy tap, a little love tap on this as soon as the daily dollar opens at 35.50. But now the games begin. And the reason why I say that is because this area needs to hold if the bulls want to maintain the overall more natural positive positioning. Now, of course, I say this, and this is only with regards to the lower time frames, and it's represented by this horizontal trend line right here, which is also the daily 21 exponential moving average, which which we could adjust really all the way down to 35.25. So it's a zone, as always, 35.50 to 35.25. You start smashing through 35.50 though, it starts to really not look too healthy. Now, because Bitcoin has already come down into this area, I do not like the overall structure of this price action right here. People are looking at this as a bull flag. I don't necessarily see it. Even if I do kind of squint my eyes and try to make an excuse for it, I would actually argue that the bull flag, if you were looking at it as one, has actually already broken down. And this is what you're looking at right over here. If that was your general prescription on this price action, for myself, I don't really look at it as such. A bull flag, especially coming off of a low like this, when people are looking at this and trying to purport this as some sort of a major, turning point within the market. A lot of people calling that the bear market is over when Bitcoin has literally not made a higher high, not even got out of the smaller consolidation that we're currently in right now, and not taking out anything on a higher time frame. More importantly, this to me is pretty delusion, I suppose is the right word to be saying. So again, looking at this price action here, we are spending way too much time in this area, and this was very apparent as of yesterday, as Bitcoin has spent about 1, 2, 3, and now 4 days essentially going sideways after this major girthy green dildo over here that we had on Friday. So when you are talking about major market cycle lows being put in, and if you are going to have a confirmed reversal, which is what a lot of people are looking at this as, you want to see more of, and I'm going to use a term that I don't typically like to use, and I typically don't use, but impulsive, meaning it gives you very little time to get in if it actually is going to move onwards and upwards. So what I would essentially have been looking for is, consolidation for a day, maybe 2 at most, and then take onwards and upwards. Instead, what we have here is we really have what is now confirmed as a lower high. We now will be fighting hidden bearish divergence on the daily, 2-day, and I believe 3-day are all 3-day is not confirmed. 2-day all the way up to the 2-day is confirmed. Higher highs in the oscillator, significantly lower highs in price action, and you can see that this is just to be interpreted, as far as I'm concerned, as another rejection of the green 55 exponential right over here. We do have the 12-hour suggesting something as well, which I spoke on very briefly yesterday, and I hope that this didn't get thrown by the wayside, because this is actually incredibly important to me. Going back on over here, yeah, we do still have this. We have the same sort of signature on the 12-hour. We actually have regular bearish divergence all the way up to a 10-hour. But what I wanted to bring up on the 12-hour was this. 12-hour Stokes have confirmed a cross down, but more importantly, remember yesterday when we looked at this right here, this trend line connecting all of the tops within this consolidation phase, telling us again that this is just to be considered another piece of the consolidation puzzle, not necessarily a full-on breakout or breakdown, in confluence with the volume signature, which we'll look at in just a second, and also in confluence with just the overall structure of this, and then obviously, our secondary indicators like historical volatility rank, like, our moving averages and all the other trending oscillators. So looking at this right here, we do have this obvious trend line governing these lower highs on the Stokes. Now, I would not put too much weight on this if this had the regular settings. I have a little bit special settings on this, which I reveal in my stochastics video. And you can see that not only are we being stopped right here at the 70-ish mark, which is about the edge of the bullish control zone, but we're also crossing down as well. So we are kind of forming this nice descending trend line, which is governing the overall momentum of this consolidation as it gets slowly ground further and further down, if that makes sense. So hopefully I got that idea out properly. But essentially, when I look at this and we just have another rejection of the 89 exponential, 100 exponential, whatever the fuck you want to call it over here, and in RSI is trending back down towards the exponential on this guy, and back kicked out of the bullish control zone, back into the neutral zone. And could you say that this is giving you some hidden bearish divergence? It's kind of far away to really be relating this point and this point. I think it's a little bit more visually apparent on the 2-day, which is confirmed as far as I'm concerned. We do have a local high, and what do we have now? We have another rejection of the yellow 20-minute exponential on the 2-day dildo chart. Very important, again, just to show the hidden bearish divergence, a little bit of a higher high here compared with this guy, and of course compared with this guy going all the way back to the 4200 tick or 4150 about a month this was end of December, so about 2 months ago. Again, looking at this area, we do have I think that the overall cards are starting to really reveal themselves. Now we're going to go down to lower time frames. We're going to go down to a 4-hour, which I think it's not. I do not consider this a higher time frame at all whatsoever. But let's just go over the overall picture, and I do believe that I'd be pretty comfortable in saying that we have something like this going on now. Before I was representing this as a potential descending triangle. I believe that with the responsive price action on Friday, we can now healthily say, okay, this is now filling out what is, technically speaking, it's a fucking pennant, descending triangle pennant coming off of a major downtrend, typically going to be a continuation pattern. Of course, not always, nothing's 100% always, but more often than not, it's going to be a continuation pattern. Bitcoin loves its triangles. I love triangles as well, as they seem to play out more often than not, as compared to, falling wedge, which I think a lot of people are going to figure out pretty damn soon that perhaps this is just another falling wedge that is going to, likely fall back on over. So again, as Bitcoin fills out this area, you do see a very obvious and orderly drop off in volume going from left to right. Again, giving us confluence that this is likely just consolidation. I feel pretty damn confident that this is just consolidation, especially as long as Bitcoin is still below this descending trend line that we've been looking at literally for the past 3 months, going all the way back to mid to late November. Bitcoin has not been able to close a 4-hour dildo above it, let alone a higher time frame above it, and that's currently coming in around 3,700 even, we could call it. So as long as Bitcoin is below there, I have no real reason to represent this as anything other than that. So when people talk about this being a confirmed low and now Bitcoin's going to move onwards and upwards, I would strongly suggest considering even just a lower time frame like this. And again, the higher time frames, there's literally nothing changed. Daily nothing has changed. Weekly hasn't changed in half a year. In the monthly is, well, we'll look at that in a second. That's the one that kind of scares me. Well, not necessarily scares me. I am short right now, actually. I am looking for a short right now based off that, as long as we are below 3,700, essentially, to get that idea out properly. So I should actually explain what I did. I did not do this on my streamer account. I did this on my main account, so I can't actually show because I don't, for obvious reasons, I don't really want to show that account. But I did actually buy the 3550 stab down during this morning. I did have a small resting order there, very, very small. And when I woke up immediately this morning when Bitcoin ticked up to 3575, I did get out of it. I don't like the reaction right now. Yes, it's very possible that Bitcoin, takes a formal stab down to this horizontal at 35.25, and then boosts back up and gives this area another love tap, and that would actually be pretty damn normal, and it would actually be kind of nice to have another test of that green 55 on the monthly, which we'll look at in just a bit, as well as obviously this descending trend line, both in confluence with each other, as again we'll confirm in just a second. That's where I'd like to enter into another major position. But for now, my eyes are on this area. If Bitcoin does take out 35.25, there's very little stopping it from 3,400 once again. So this is of extreme importance. Now, our lower time frame oscillators are actually switching around, and let me just get rid of this guy. We'll look at the Stokes really quick. 4-hour Stokes are actually crossing up right now. A little bit of a weak cross as it stands, but it is crossed up. Obviously, you don't want to be fighting that. 2-hour has crossed up, gaining momentum up. 3-hour has crossed up and then snaked back down. That's typically a bad sign and indicative of another kind of wave coming. Hourly Stokes just hanging out in the bearish control zone, finding resistance right around the edge of that area. So again, another thing, just aligning in that area. The second that we go up to like the more medium time frames, like the 6-hour, the 8-hour, the 10-hour, those are actually still heading healthily down. The 8-hour getting right back into the neutral zone after getting rejected from the bullish control zone. Same thing with the 8-hour, essentially actually just a little bit more fresh and 10 hour, 12 hour, 10 hour right over here. Same sort of thing. It's just crossing back down, and 12 hour, as we saw when we began this stream, not only hitting a trend line, which has been valid for the last 3 months, almost 3 months now, but also crossing down as well and getting rejected from that zone. So that to me tells me a lot about price action, and I do want to be cognizant of that going forwards, as Bitcoin does seem to be really respecting that area. And when you find a time frame that works, you use it until it doesn't work. And that's, again, I know that's something that a naysayer of technical analysis will absolutely hate, but this is why it's an art and not a science. And again, this is one of the things that my mentor used to tell me. He said, it works until it doesn't. And that's coming from a guy who had been doing it for literally 40 fucking years. And that's the best that he had. But again, you don't need to be perfect to make really a shit ton of money. You don't need to be perfect to make even a living. And that really helped hammer in that point. It's like, oh, okay, that's pretty soothing. It's not always going to work, but you use it until it doesn't, because, well, the trend is your friend until the end of the trend, right? And if the trend's been going for about over a year now, a year and a couple months, it's been pretty damn good. And I'll just keep on going with it until told otherwise. But for now, even on the lower time frames, nothing has switched around. We do not have volume confirmation. We do not have pattern confirmation. We do not have price action and moving average confirmation. And this is even, again, just on a smaller time frame. Now let's go over to the daily and see what the daily is doing right now. Daily is just playing between the 55 and the 21. The 21, typically speaking, is going to be a buy on the next pass. That's formally coming in around 35.25. I know I said 35.50 as well. That is in play, but it's a zone as always. And you know what? I'll actually put in a nice horizontal trend line right in this area, and we can do it right here. And that is kind of like the current pivot, so to speak. So as long as Bitcoin's above it, you do want to see another little small run up probably, and test this area perhaps even again formally. Actually it's coming in around 36.70 now. But the second they actually lose this area, well, it's back on to pressure to the downside. Yeah, there are supports around 34.65, but I would be looking actually formally for a test of the lower support trend line of this formation. You know what? We can actually put in something on this area as well. So this is the zone for the downside as long as Bitcoin is essentially above this block. I don't want to be, too damn bearish looking for new lows. If Bitcoin does take out this area, yes, you still do have this support from your former lows at 32.50. But my opinion is at that point in time, you're probably going to get another flush, just like you got from 6,000 to 3,000. It's not going to be, $3,000, or hopefully not, because I'd literally put Bitcoin at $568.50. That would be a little bit, usually I say, I'm very rarely surprised by the craziness of price action. That would be a little bit surprising. If Bitcoin really did go below $500, my God, man. Or around $500, that would be pretty brutal. By the same token, to the upside, we have this zone right here, from about 36.50 to, we could call this 36.90, 3700, and that's essentially what we're looking at right now. Of course, if Bitcoin does break out to the upside, I think it's a little bit less likely right now. I think that price action is starting to reveal itself. Whereas the next resistance, if that were to happen, around 38.20 to 38.50. Again, I'm going to be doing these more as zones now, because I think it's just the right way to be doing it, and I don't want to, it's the way that I actually do it, so why not? And then of course, if that area gets taken out, which I do believe that if Bitcoin actually did, if Bitcoin did take out this 3,700 area, my opinion is that Bitcoin probably has a straight shot to about 40.50, the prior highs. That would actually make a lot of sense. But by the same token, it's kind of like, I don't trade my opinion. Just like if Bitcoin were to break to the downside off of this support at 33.50ish area, then I'd still be closing some positions at 32.50, just because it's your, it's kind of your prior lows, it's your former support. It's probably gonna have a little bit of a bounce there at the very least. My opinion is, we probably do flush after that point, because if you do break 33.50, that's going to likely come in confluence with a break of the weekly 200 simple moving average, which now we'll get onto the higher time frames, and we can really get an idea of what has not changed as far as a greater picture goes. Now, here's a 200 simple represented by the red moving average on the downside. And you can see that is coming in around 32 on Bitstamp. So if Bitcoin were to break it, that would literally be the first time it's ever broken it in its history. Again, that's not necessarily fully, people are saying that it can't break because it's never been broken in Bitcoin's history. It's just, it's fucking young, man. You need 200 weeks to even go past before you can even put one tick on this. So it just hasn't had time. Bitcoin's relatively young. So when I'm looking at this guy, I am thinking to myself, the second that the 200 simple moving average breaks, I don't see too much holding up from the next support ledge, which I have again around this this blue box territory between 2300 and 2600. That's also the 886 Fibonacci retracement down here, and that is where Bitcoin actually did have its spike low in 2014. We do have some nice historical horizontal trend lines coming around this area. We do have the volume profile signaling some massive thick AF volume nodes being thrown down in this area, and you will notice that after Bitcoin loses that 3300 number, there is nothing doing, just like you had from 6000 to high 3000s. There's nothing doing from 3300 to about mid to low 2000s actually. And if we go to BLX index, you will see that the 377 exponential is actually coming around that 2600 range. And now let's get to the monthly, because I did gloss over that. But remember the top of the consolidation triangle that we're currently looking at. Where was that coming in around? Around 3,700, give or take a few bucks. I suppose a little bit lower right now. Well, where is that green 55 exponential coming in on the monthly? Again, a very high time frame, something that I put a shit ton of weight on. Again, coming from my sort of background as a market maker in equity options, I would use the monthly to denote if I'm generally bearish, generally bullish on an asset. And if I were looking at something like this, I'd say you are one tick away from confirming an extremely bearish setup, to put it lightly. We have the Green 55 exponential, which is at around 3670. So again, where does that come into confluence with that consolidation that we looked at on the lower time frames? Right about at the top of the triangle, right? Again, doesn't mean that Bitcoin can't break above it, but as long as Bitcoin closes this monthly below the Green 55 exponential, that means that you can get a wick above. We could even break the consolidation to the upside on the lower time frames and then still end below 3670 before end of month. That would be a very, 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 very bearish setup. We would have both opened and closed our first monthly dildo but below the Green 55 exponential for the first time in Bitcoin's history ever. And at that point in time, I would look towards, where's this level? The 89 Cyan moving average is 2450. That is also within the bounds, if you recall, of what we just looked at on the next target around, in the blue box territory that we looked at. So again, a lot of things lining up with this, and we will be fighting a very nasty moving average cross between the 10 simple and the yellow 20-minute exponential. And as Bitcoin's consolidating this area, I do count this as basically a consolidation while this is getting resolved on its own. And this is one of those more common inputs that's on the Boston algos of the market, which will intensify the sell programs most likely. Again, doesn't mean you can't have your rallies in your bear market. You certainly will, just like you have your dumps in your bull market. And that is the delicate part of what's going on right now. We're basically looking at, okay, is this the major rejection right now that I'm looking for? Because my bias is overall bearish. I do not believe that the lows are in. Don't really see anything that is indicative of a low, and my fail safes for knowing if I'm going to be wrong are pretty far and away from being hit. So if this is the setup, this is likely worth a trade for me. So again, I'm just denoting my own risk reward, setups, how I manage these sorts of things. I'm not saying that anyone should do this, in exactly my way. In fact, I would suggest you should, if you find value in what I say, just take what you like and then make it your own. And that's how you're going to make your own strategy particular to your own trading identity and your own trading personality. And that's going to make it much more sustainable for yourself, which is actually going to be a big topic in the trading psychology series, which I'll be releasing this weekend on Saturday. Again, a lot of people have been reaching out to me and asked me if I'm going to put this as like a course where you have to pay for it. No, I'm not. I don't want the added pressure of making this super professional right now. I like I like kind of the relaxedness of it, and I like using my typical colorful language for better or worse. Maybe at some point in time I will do a more professional type setup, and that would actually be pretty fun. I'm actually having a shit ton of fun putting this together because it's something that I'm quite passionate about, and perhaps at some point in time maybe I will go through the full rigmarole. But those programs take so long to put together, and it's so intensive, and it really takes a lot out of me. So I'd rather. If I am going to do something like that, I want to wait till the market like truly dies down and where nothing's really going on, so I can focus solely on that and produce something that I would be extremely proud of. So again, looking at this area, looking at the lower time frames, it does look droopy, it does look like it wants a little bit lower. Technically speaking, again, you still do have this support here, 3530, lower end of this area, but understand the confluences between the higher timeframes and the lower timeframes. Now, if Bitcoin does reject from this area and does work its way lower, that will start to look a lot more like a realistic rejection of the Green 55 exponential on the monthly dildo time frame. And if Bitcoin both opens and closes this monthly dildo below it, which it will have a chance, because last month we actually closed our first monthly dildo below it for the first time in Bitcoin's history. This will be a confirmed kill of a moving average, just like when the 200 exponential on the downside was broken. This would be an extremely big deal to me, is what I'm trying to say, and likely lead on to that next, likely be the next big leading indicator into the next, dump. I would imagine to the 2000s. So yeah, I always want to say that I am a long-term believer in Bitcoin, but I'm also a trader who needs to make money and needs to make a living on a relatively consistent basis. So that is why, that's why fucking bear in a bear market, I'm going to be bearish, man. In a bull market, I'm going to be bullish. But in a bear market, when I get a bearish signal, I will take that all the time because it's more likely to work out. In a bear market, if I get a bullish signal, am I going to take it? I'm actually a lot more hesitant to. In fact, most of the time I will not. The reason why I took the 35.50 trade for a small scalp is just because it's that much of a strong play that it typically works out. Now let's go look at the longs and shorts. And we have a few longs being gained in the last since we last spoke at around 32,600. We lost a little bit of shorts actually, 24,700ish area, with about how many of those hedged? We have 3,500 of these guys hedged, so we have lost actually about half a thousand. So we really have about 21,000 open naked shorts versus again almost 33,000 open longs. Now let me relay to you the importance of this, and that is because over here on the longs chart, on the longs chart on Finex, I have this trend line, as you can see, at this 33,000 level, and that actually lines up with major dumps in Bitcoin's history. Whether Bitcoin just spikes to it or gets over it, it does typically tell you when there's too many people on the bust syndrome. If everyone's already bought, think about it this way: if everyone's already bought, who's left to buy? And when Bitcoin is below all these major resistances and still using up all this all these margin positions to get there, that is not the sort of balance and power that you want to see. That's going to lead you out of a bear market. You quite literally want to see it the opposite, where everyone's trying to short, and then you have in contrast less longs. Now, does that mean that Bitcoin can't get above this 33,000 open longs area? No, it does not. In fact, you see plenty of times where it did, and it got all the way up to 40,000. But on those scenarios, when it actually did get up to 40,000, when it came back down below this signal, that's when the dump did occur, like as far as timing goes. So you do see us getting extremely close. You actually see a wick perfectly to this area. Again, I haven't changed this marker in ages. It's not even supposed to be this fucking accurate, but it gets it more often than not, funnily enough. So again, keep that in mind. 33,000 open longs is kind of too many people on the bust territory. Shorts are actually letting them go their positions. It's quite literally the opposite right now. We are at a critical point, as far as a lack of shorts going on. The too many people bus on this, too many people syndrome on the bus. If I'm probably dyslexic or some shit, is around 31,000 for shorts is what I found. Anywhere above that typically lines up with major pumps. You'll notice this one's of particular interest in middle of April, when Bitcoin literally had, I think it was the most intense 1 hour dildo in its literal history, the girthiest, most powerful, most veiny, just cock and ball shooting up, and $1,000 in, I believe, an hour period. That was insane, especially when Bitcoin at that point in time was around $6,000. Now, of course, when Bitcoin's $15,000 and it does that amount of price action in that time, less impressive. But when it's $6,000, that's like fucking crazy, man. So again, anywhere on these spike lows, around the low 20,000 range, it actually does line up with major dumps in Bitcoin's history. I mean, you have this guy coming all the way back from March. That was your 12,000 high, or sorry, was that your 12,000 high, down to 6,000. Then we had this May high over here in 10,000 to 6,000. Then we had this August low right over here, 8,000 to 6,000. Then we had this November dump over here. That was 6,000 to 3,000. And then we are once again kind of within this territory, although not necessarily as far down as the ones before. So that is a counterpoint to what I'm saying, but it's on the radar is what I'm trying to get out. It's on the radar of being relevant. So keep that in mind. Let me just make sure that I'm still recording. Okay, good. That's been an issue in the past. Sometimes I'll record like an hour-long video, and then I'm like, oh, nice, the mic was off. Oh, nice, didn't hit the record button. Oh, nice. There's something playing in the background. Fucking good one, Crown. So yeah, I'm a complete moron sometimes, or perhaps more often than not. Anyways, let's go check out GBTC, because GBTC is doing something very interesting as well right now. GBTC put in a very nasty bear trap and had an extremely good buyback on Friday. Again, the Jewel telling you literally the day before to be a buyer, perfect buy signal actually. And those perfect signals, I don't believe I have an example of where it's been wrong just yet. I'm trying to look. I don't really think that there has been one. Yeah. Well, you don't really get them too often. That's the whole catch about it. You don't get them all that often, but when you do get them, pay fucking attention. If you do have the Jewel, if you do have access to the Jewel, I always want to say that. Pay attention to the newest video, which I released a couple weeks ago. So yeah, on GBTC, on the lower time frames, that's where the action is going down or perhaps up. And when we do have this trend line here that GBTC broke back to the upside, but now is breaking back down below. What's going on here? If we go to the hourly, you can see it's clearly resistance now too. We broke back above, we broke back mountain above, then took a stab back below, and now we've tested it once, tested it twice as resistance, and losing the 200 exponential. What's going on over here? Is this a trap of a trap? I don't think I've really ever seen something like that. Perhaps I'm just calling it wrong altogether, and what I really should be saying is, hey, what do you have here? You just have probably another lower high, which is just as valid. I mean, you have a very similar setup to what you had at the 494 region. What I do fear, or what I do have as my biggest counterpoint to Bitcoin going down more immediately than rather than going up, or sorry, what I do have, the biggest counter to more immediate downside rather than going up sooner is that GBTC has a massive gap right around this 469 region. That we put in early January. And that would likely line up with spot charts getting somewhere back around 3850, 3900, the area that we looked at on the way up. So again, if that were to happen, that's what I'd be looking for. But you can see that, OTC bullshit, I can verify that in traditional markets, when you have a gap, every gap in history has been filled, ever. And if it hasn't already, it likely will be. I just don't believe that there hasn't been one that I mean, like sometimes it can be years, but they typically do get filled. It's one of those things that you can typically count on. In GBTC trades OTC, which is like basically penny stocks. If you've watched The Wolf of Wall Street, they were trading like OTC pink slip bullshit, which is what GBTC is. It trades OTC, and we do have this gap over here. Does that mean that it's going to get filled? Well, I mean, we had a gap at this area. GBTC gave it a try late November, didn't fill it, and continued much further low. We had a gap over here before the ultimate dooms drop. That's not getting filled anytime soon. So that would be a counterpoint to what I'm saying. When we're talking about OTC, there are different rules that apply, and I don't really have much experience trading OTC. I don't have really any practical experience trading OTC. As when I traded markets, I was trading on a professional exchange, New York Stock Exchange, ARCA, and then above Chicago Board's Options Exchange. That it wasn't. These are like legitimate major American exchanges. If you're not familiar with them, OTC is like it's like going on to fucking Cryptopia. Okay, to put it to relate it to something in crypto land. So again, I am less confident of that, but it is worth mentioning. Is what I do want to say. Let's go check out CME futures over here. CME futures just drooping down, looking nasty. This is your 8-hour dildo time frame. We have 8-hour Stokes crossing the downside, getting rejected right at the edge of the bullish control zone, and we do have. You'll notice the same sort of trend line governing our highs on this guy. It's governing our highs again, shuffling it back down and grinding it back below. And this trend line goes all the way back to mid-December. That's this high over here, governing our highs. So again, I really like this for an overall reading. You know what? I need to just completely redo this chart. And that reminds me, I want to throw up a fib on our regular ones right now. But basically something like this, right? We got something like this going on. We have a perfect spike to it on Friday. And going off of our lows so far, something like this. Now, the biggest thing about CMEs is that the volume on Friday was significant. But remember, CMEs representing a very low actual activity of this market. Same sort of setup here though, just different numbers. 3,500 is your major support. If you break 3,500, you don't buy it. You probably want to sell it. Again, it's not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, but I am just sharing exactly what I do in these exact sort of same situations. And it's making the same formation overall. If 3,500 does break, I'd be looking, again, 3,350, which, by the way, the premium and or discount on GBTC is pretty much on par, is parity with spot underlying right now. So that is important. We'll just use something like this. And by the way, the apex of this triangle that we're currently in is likely to, it does have an apex in early to mid March. So we will choose a direction relatively soon. This is likely to break, I'd imagine within the next couple of weeks. I'd say probably before end of February. That's what I'd be comfortable with saying. Barring we make something new. If Bitcoin breaks this out to the upside, again, above 3,700, then yes, then we have something new going on and it's time to reconsider. But until that happens, well, not necessarily. So again, going back onto spot charts, and let's put on that fib that we just spoke of. And let's do this guy over here, fib retracement. And again, we're going to get very, 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 very good. Or we're gonna get, Jesus Christ, I'm speaking like fucking Spanglish or some shit. No, not Spanglish, but English is what I'm looking for. Yeah, we're gonna get very good. It's like, Jesus Christ, Crown. Oh my God, I only speak one language, and I can sound like a complete moron even doing that. Apologize, guys. I do really want to learn a new language. I've been living in Europe for I don't know, like a year or two now. Should probably actually start learning some other useful shit. Anyways. So Bitcoin having a major drop down off of this consolidation, at 6,000. You probably remember that for over a year, putting in its major low so far at 3,150, and then having our first big dead cat bounce, or likely a dead cat bounce, or it's certainly acting like one. We have a very obvious signature into what the fibs are doing, which tells us what the bots and algos are doing. And this is certainly a very, very algo-driven market, which is not a bad thing. It's not a good thing. It's just, it is what it is. That is trading. I mean, most markets are, especially in a market that does. I don't think that we have retailers left in this market. I don't think I'm like blowing anyone's mind by saying that. Probably the retailers, they all got wrecked in like February, man. So let's just call it like it is. And you have your first big up over here, putting in the high, then pop back down to the 618. 618 gets picked up. Where's the target going to be? Right above the 236. That gets sold right back. And where do we end? Right back up around the 618. Where's the target going to be next for the algos? Right around the 382. Pops back down to the 618. Gets picked up once again. Where's the target going to be once again? 0.5. Pops back down to the 618. Fails. Comes down to the 786. Where's the target going to be on the 786 once it gets picked up? Well, as we spoke about, the second that Bitcoin broke 3469 to the upside, the target was going to be 3650, 3700 right here, which is exactly what happened. Again, not saying that to sound like, oh, I'm so cool, whatever the fuck. No, it's so that you can take this on and do it yourself next time. And there you go. And now you can have a nice trade. By the same token, this 618, now a critical level, I would imagine that the next time it comes back down to it, it probably breaks it. That's my opinion. Now, does that mean that we can't get picked up here at the 618, try the 0.5 again, and then fall back down? Yeah, it's certainly possible. Certainly very possible, actually. So I suppose that's really all there's to say about that. It is possible, but I would be looking for the 0.5 to be sold either which way. So whether it's a 0.5 or the 618 that essentially fails, that essentially rejects, and when I say the 618, I mean to the downside. That's what I'm looking for from my next trade. And I do want to put on a new directional trade relatively soon. Look at the maturity of this price action. Look at the volume characteristics. Look at the space left within this formation. Look at the overall price structure. Look at the fib signature. And you can probably see yourself alongside confluence of the higher time frames, the weekly and then the monthlies that we looked at with the moving averages. For me, this is worth a trade. It's just about getting the position that has good risk reward at the current moment in time. And for right now, it's not really in my range. It's not really what I'm looking. It doesn't really meet my criteria at the current moment in time. But the overall setup is starting to really reveal itself. So now I am, I'm planning, plotting. And again, I'll either want to enter in a position over here, or if we break the 618, then I'll enter into a position, obviously less good. And I want to do these on the June futures because the marges are expiring soon, which is actually why I'm getting rid of them. I want to roll essentially and put on a slightly bigger position actually. So yeah, I believe we glossed over the weekly a little bit fast, but I do want to say, as long as Bitcoin is below the 200 exponential, which is currently at around 4150, which is actually well above all the resistances that we looked at first. The very small time, the very small time frames, the triangle that we're looking at, that resistance is 3700. If that breaks the upside, then the next area that we look at is 3850 to 3900, and then the one after that is 4050. The 200 exponential, which has been governing our lower highs ever since Bitcoin dropped down into this more aggressive downtrend off of this area, is all the way at 41, is above 4100. So that to me is also a very big deal. Why? Because as long as Bitcoin is opening and closing weekly doors below that 200 exponential, I am pretty fucking bearish. I'm overall bearish. Now, if Bitcoin both opens and closes a weekly door above this 200 exponential, I immediately change my overall bias. And you'll hear me really take on a different tone, and I'll probably even take some longs off that. Is that the final nail in the coffin for the bear market cycle? No. In fact, more traditionally speaking, you want to see price action get it back above the breakdown area, which was 6,000 or 6,100, I suppose, a little bit more accurately speaking. That would be the more obvious and more traditional signal. I think that you'll have signals beforehand, and a big one is going to be that weekly 200 exponential, how it reacts, or how it responds to price action, and that's what I'll be saying about that. Now, you will notice we actually have done something for the first time in a very long time with last weekly's dildo on February 4th, closing above the red 10 simple moving average. The last time that we actually did that was on August 27th, literally about like a half a year ago. However, the next week, it was literally engulfed with a bearish engulfing, very massive, very girthy, and very powerful dildo to the downside. The last time that Bitcoin ever closed a weekly dildo above this 10 simple moving average. So again, it's certainly more positive thing than negative. But I just do want to temper the more immediate bullish case, because low time frames, they still have a lot of work to do. Medium time frames, still a lot of work to do. High time frames, still even more work to do, again. So keep this in mind. When you look at the weekly, you do notice I think it's very abundantly clear that the volume on Friday is what people are talking about as start of the bull market dildo is quite anemic. I mean, it's well below the volume moving average. Not a death sentence in and of itself, but putting together the whole picture, I don't really see why a lot of people are getting so excited about this just yet. I want moon boobs too. I am so in love with titties, but I also don't want to be living on the street, and so I need to see proof first, not delusion and hopium. So for now, the former trend is still remains, still takes precedence as far as I'm concerned. Again, looking at this whole picture at large, I know a lot of people are the other look is that people say that we're going to go back up to about 4,500, because that is the measured move off of the current formation that we're looking at, which again goes back over to this guy. Remember this triangular consolidation that we're looking at. People are saying, hey, if you do break out to the upside, you will have a measured move all the way to about 4,500, which is true. You technically would have something around this range, or sorry, a little bit lower, basically around this prior high at around 4,550. But again, even a bullish break in a bearish market, I don't like it. If we saw like a truly impulsive move, just a massive girthy green dildo just shoving you all the way up, relatively fast to 4,000, then it would be a little bit of a different story. It'd be a little bit more immediately imposing. But by the same token, we can just easily break this onto the downside, and this would be pointing all the way down to where? Do we have another thing pointing down to the mid 2000s? We do. 2,500 right here, 2,450 actually. So again, you'll notice that is coming into confluence with a lot of things. So again, just keep these in mind. Bitcoin does break out to the upside. We'll talk about it if and when it does happen. But again, 3,700 needs to be broken first. Then we can talk about 3,850, and then if that breaks, and 4050 to 4,100ish area. Again, the 200 exponential. That's going to be the big test for me. That would be the big test for me. As long as Bitcoin's below there, I will be running with the assumption that we are likely doing more of the same. So let's go check out some altcoins. Let's go check out Mrs. Litecoin. She led the market to the upside and now getting rejected right where we said resistance was. Again, Mrs. Litecoin is the best potential example of maybe the bear market being over. But again, or maybe things switching around. But again, as long as you're below 47.50, it's still, I mean, not really challenging this area. If you can get back above 47.50, 40 or $50, then yeah, then this thing can run quite a bit. $69, 70, 74, $72 wouldn't be out of the question if that were to happen. Really good volume on Friday's buying, but again, this seems to be an event-driven type thing. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't believe I've seen a bear market end on bullish news. I've seen bear markets end when the last seller has sold. That's why a lot of the times when you see bullish news in this bear market, it just gets literally sold into. It's used for liquidity for the downside. Litecoin a special case because it doesn't take all that much to force this guy up. But again, keep in mind, it has a higher time frame picture changed. Well, we have made a higher high on the daily. I believe we have a higher high on the weekly as well, perhaps. Do we? Yeah, we do. Not bad. But, for 47.50, $50 needs to be taken out, and then I'd be a lot more comfortable with calling this guy almost down. By the same token, oops, this is not right. By the same token, what are we filling out now if it gets rejected here? Which lower timeframes have confirmed a rejection out this area. It's just a rising wedge, bear flag, and the target on this, if it does break to the downside, would likely be around this $30 area. So again, keep that in mind. It needs to prove itself, and even with all of this, all of this done to the upside, still did not take out the critical areas. Let's go check out Mr. Ripples. Mr. Ripples back below 30 cents now. Jesus Christ, man! And again, what do we have on Mr. Ripples? Even on Friday's green dildo party, it gets shoved right back on up, reclaims a 21 exponential, and then immediately gets shoved right back down. And what are we forming on this guy? A nice ascending triangle over the last 3 months, or 2 months, I should say. This is really bad. Daily Stokes trying to get out of the bearish control zone, but they are crossed up, so fair enough. But again, as long as you're below 34.5 cents, it's very difficult to be excited about something like this. Losing all major moving averages now in the context of a bearish consolidation pattern. And I think it's even a little bit more nasty on a 3-day dildo time frame. Yeah, here you go. 3-day dildo time frame. Death cross below all major moving averages, rejected at the 10 simple. Again, just almost immediately. What about Stellar lumens? Even worse. Stellar, how dare you? How fucking dare you? Again, even on Friday, gets to try the next resistance at 8.25 cents. Very weak resistance. Still can't even get past that. And we do have the 3-day Stokes for both Stellar and Ripples, Ripple Me Timbers, crossing to the upside or hinting at a cross to the upside. Not doing it. Again, it's... I would honestly be looking for a bounce on these guys soon, but my God, man, they just keep on signaling weakness. Let's go look at Mr. Butterall, Mr. Buttersworth over here. Do we have anything to be aware of on Mr. Buttersworth? Basically playing between the 21 and the 10 simple, using this horizontal as support at 118. So the big area for Mr. Buttersworth to hold is or to hodl is this I would say 117. We've tested this 1, 2, now 3 times. I don't like that, man. I don't like that. The more you test this, the weaker it looks. And this is now confirmed as a little bit of a lower high now, isn't it? And we do have, do we have anything to be aware of? We do have hidden bearish divergence between this point and this point, although that is, this is not as impressive. That's not really like a local high. I mean, it is, but I want to have it with this guy, and we don't necessarily have that. So yeah, as long as Mr. Buttersworth is below, 131, nothing really major has changed. If it does break 131, then don't really see too much stopping it actually from 145 on Finex. If it does break 117 to the downside though, same thing as Bitcoin, probably coming back down to the lows. Again, daily Stokes getting up there, gonna be testing the bullish control zone today. And with the way that the lower timeframes are shaping up, it does look like, it's looking like it's coming under pressure right now. 4-hour Stokes are going to be hinting at a cross up, though, rejecting the bearish control zone. So there certainly are things, conflicting with what I'm saying for my general bias. But hey, going back on over here to spot charts for Bitcoin, 4-hour Stokes are crossing up. We are on what should be major support, but it's looking droopy. It does look like it wants to come back down. 8-hour again. The higher time frames are a little bit more ominous. So yeah, I think that's probably going to do it for today. I guess we can quickly look at SPYs over here. SPY closing the day unched essentially. Again, this is why it's so important to wait for confirmation. I'll just be going off the weekly right now. I don't really have a strong opinion either which way. I do feel like our summation indices are pretty mature. If you look at the McClellan oscillator, I want to show it right now. It's typically where you do put in tops, but again, I would not call this even a local top until you take out the low of the last weekly dildo, which is 267 and 83 cents. If that does happen though, then I start looking towards 262-ish area, which is the critical area for this guy. If he does take out 262, I would start to entertain talks of reversal once again. I am looking for that, but again, you know, if SPY takes out the high of this dildo by the same token, there ain't nothing stopping this thing from 280. 280 area, give or take a couple bucks. Volume on this certainly tailing off, certainly, a little bit lackluster. If this thing does turn down, it'll also be interpreted as a rejection of a positive bullish cross on these moving averages here. So again, I'm on edge. I don't trade this anymore. But that's what I'd be looking for. Hey, whichever way, it's a very easy trade to be taken. Whichever way that we actually break this doji dildo right here is gonna be your next big direction most likely. So yeah, back on a Bitcoin. I'll wrap this bitch up and then leave you off till tonight where I'll do another live stream most likely. Barring any sort of major medical emergency, knock on wood. Now I'm gonna be fucked. Remember the one time I went to. The medical industry is really good here though. They have free healthcare, and one time I busted my eye open. It was great. Just walk into the hospital. Hey, could you fix me up? They don't even ask if you live here. They just fucking fix you up. It's awesome. But yeah, anyways, enough talking shit. More into Bitcoin. And Bitcoin, again, very little has changed from a lower time frame perspective. Yeah, we have come all the way down to 3550. I did play the bounce, but I'm out of the bounce. I don't really like the droopiness here. I don't like the hesitation. That's not a sign of strength. If this was going to be a more turnaround, if this was going to be a more ominous move to the upside, I believe that we would have seen it probably take off by the second or third day of this consolidation above 3600. We did not. We came back down to test this area. It probably does bounce here a little bit. If it does bounce all the way back up to 3650, 3700, I will take a trade off this and manage risk around here. Again, nothing's guaranteed, but it does offer up a good potential. By the same token, if we do break 3530 to the downside, yeah, you do have support at 3450, but I believe that you'd be revisiting your lows relatively soon after that. Overall, nothing's changed on the lower time frames, medium time frames, or higher time frames. Doesn't mean that it can't, but understand the areas in which things do change and understand the confluences with the higher time frames as a monthly is of extreme importance to me right now. So that's going to do it for today, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak with you. Definitely check out the interview that I just did with FUD TV, Elliot of FUD TV. It was a really, really cool setup. He does the news first, and then we talk about the overall setup of these charts and what to be aware of going on and forwards here. So again, as always, a pleasure to speak with you. Wishing you well, and I'll see you guys soon. Take care.